welcome to our first Q&A that involves both speech and ABA.
Yes.
We're so excited. My name is Morgan, and I'm one of the speech pathologists at the Talk team.
My name's Jenny, and I'm a BCAVA at Talk ABA.
Can you tell us what BCAVA stands for?
BCABA, so a board certified assistant behavior analyst.
Cool. I just learned something new. So
Every day.
So we're gonna answer just a few questions that we've been asked, and that we honestly get asked regularly to help.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover in our questions. I often get asked, like, when will my child speak? And that's always a really hard question for me to answer, and then I usually go to Morgan, and Morgan has better answers than I do.
And I get asked a lot, like, how to help my child with this certain behavior, and while I have some knowledge about certain things, especially if the behavior is relating to language, anything beyond that goes out of my field and out of my specialty, so I head over to Jenny, and it's very convenient that we share a building and there's only a courtyard that separates us, so
lots of collaboration.
Yes, it's great. So let's get started.
Right. Okay. One of the questions that I did get asked was AAC or PECS. And I think from the ABA perspective, we are taught PECS. Like, that's just how we're taught. That's just our curriculum, our education, and that's what we go to. And I'd never really had any experience with AAC until I started working at Talk Team. And I felt like that was something that you guys go over. Like, it's really, I mean, it depends on the child, obviously, but that was something I learned from you guys, that AAC has been really, like, life-changing for a lot of our clients. And having access to that information has been super helpful for our clients' progress.
Yeah, and that's a tricky question, and I do think it's very client specific, and there are pros and cons to both. One is low cost, but takes a lot more time to prepare, and it takes time to add more icons and more vocabulary. Another one can be more expensive, but a lot of the AAC programs are pre-programmed. And so all the vocabulary is already there right at the child's disposal. And if it's not, it's a really quick fix to add something new. So it depends on the family's need and the client's need, I would say.
Yeah.
Cool. So back to your first question. The question about when will my child talk. I feel like every speech therapist, every BCBA, every BT has probably been asked these questions before. And it's such a hard one to answer because we don't know. We can't put a timeline on a child's language in that way. And I always just try to reassure parents that we are doing everything we can to help them communicate. And I remind them a lot that communication is gestures, it's PECS, it's AAC, it's words, it's all these different things. And that our goal isn't always to talk, it's to communicate, and that can look very differently for each child, and everyone moves at their own pace, and I always try to really praise what the child is doing well and remind the parent of how they are growing and how they are making steps in that direction. So,
and to me, behavior is communication. So when you have a child who's tantruming, or they're having a lot of escape behavior, so they don't want to go to school, or they don't want to do something that's not really preferred, that's their way of communicating to you. If they don't have access to, vocabulary, like AAC or PECS or vocal or whatever type, starting with gestures has been something that I learned from this SLP side of it. Just pointing is a behavior, and it's a way to communicate. And so just because your child isn't, like, vocally or verbally expressing, it doesn't mean that they're not communicating.
Exactly.
There are 100 different ways to communicate. So it's been fun experimenting that and teaching kids, like, different levels of communication.
I don't know about you guys, but I've seen in a lot of my kids, when they start to realize that they can communicate, whether it's through gestures or oftentimes AAC with me, their behaviors decrease significantly. Like their aggressive behaviors, or like when they don't get frustrated as much because they're having their wants and needs met, which is really cool.
And imagine, like, not being able to express your wants and needs, and that's where you get that maladaptive behavior. That's how they're learning these behaviors, because crying gets you what you want. And so once you start learning, if I point to what I want instead of crying, it's a more appropriate way to communicate.
Absolutely.
That goes,
cool.
good crossovers.
Yes, I know. I love it. I love it.
Did I do something wrong, or how can I help them use language?
Yeah, so I also get asked that question a lot, and even if it's not directly, did I do something wrong? A lot of parents, you can just tell in how they're expressing themselves to you, or what kind of questions they're asking, that they feel some sort of guilt. And I always just reassure parents that you did not do anything wrong. And I try to hit that really hard with every parent. And I go, okay, so you did nothing wrong. And now that we've found this thing that's a challenge for your child, let's talk about the things that you can do to promote language in the home. And that is a case-by-case basis. It depends on what the child's working on. It depends on how they communicate. And so in terms of how to help the child's language, that conversation kind of goes a little bit differently based on the situation.
In ABA, we are allowed to request insurance for parent training hours, because that's such a huge component of the behavior plan, and making sure that the stuff that we're implementing in therapy that gets implemented at home too, and they get to learn about the different functions of behavior, how they can reinforce different ways of communication. And usually it's the simple things, but with new parents, or I work a lot with kids with autism, and they have a lot of kids come to us and they have new diagnosis, and parents don't really know where to go or what to do. And they do have all the questions like, how do I help, my kid get to school or be able to participate in general education type activities. And I think that the parent training aspect is super important. I always recommend parents get on Facebook and join community groups, like local groups. We have like Autism Moms in Fresno. There's all kinds of resources out there. The Autism Helper has visuals and things like that. So I usually have a resource list too that I can give to parents. Like, this is things you should be doing and you can be doing and trying, and it's definitely a good crossover. And I think learning how you guys do things and how we do things, and then they're basically both the same, even though we're two different fields. It all ties into behavior and communication.
Exactly, because language is a behavior, like you said earlier. So any other questions?
I think that's good for now.
Okay, I think so too. Thanks.
Yeah. Come back next time.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. This was our first time doing anything like this. We're very nervous, but
message us if you have any more questions.
Yes. Bye.